second Sunday of Easter. And this Sunday we're always given that scripture story of Thomas, or doubting Thomas as he's been known over the centuries. And I think most Catholics, Christians would be familiar with the story. Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to his disciples, but for some reason Thomas wasn't with them, and part of that. And when the disciples told Thomas that Jesus had risen from the dead, he simply didn't believe in them and didn't accept it. And so the scripture on this Sunday just has Jesus, really the timeline goes a week after his resurrection, again appearing to his disciples who are all in a room together, and this time Thomas is with them. So there's a few sort of aspects of doubting Thomas that I think are helpful, and I have to say I'm rather grateful to the theologian Richard Leonard for some of the thoughts behind this. The thoughts are that Thomas, it's not as though Thomas did not believe in Jesus. Thomas very much believed in Jesus, but he'd witnessed his friend, he'd witnessed Jesus go through an unjust trial and crucifixion and death, and was completely sad and disillusioned and despondent and had lost all hope. So it was quite reasonable for him to not accept what the disciples are saying. He's kind of in good company. So that, I think that's the first thing. Thomas really did believe in Jesus. Second thing is, Thomas didn't believe what his friends, the disciples, were telling him, that Jesus had risen from the dead. And that's where I think we're in good company, because I've just been watching a show on the ABC, iView, this week, and it's really a BBC program just on these 7 people involved in the media, I think, in England, who do the pilgrimage to Santiago, and it just follows their journey. And two of them are Christians. One of is, some of the people might, if they ever watch Songs of Praise, it's the woman minister on that who hosts that program, and then there's another believer. But the other 5 are very much non-believers, and they simply say, well, it's not as though we don't want to believe, it's just the resurrection of Jesus and the life everlasting after that. There's no reason to it. It doesn't follow any logic or any science, and it's just impossible to believe. So I think that's the sort of struggle we have. A lot of people have become disillusioned with the church in recent times and what people in the church say, especially after the Royal Commission into the abuse of younger people and all those revelations, that we do become not trustful of what other people tell us. So I think we're in good company with Thomas. But what I think makes a difference is that the way Jesus sort of appeared to Thomas, he came there and he wasn't at all sort of ticking Thomas off for not believing. He came there and said, "Peace be with you," and it was just friendliness. I was your friend, I am your friend, I'm still with you. But then I think the telling thing for me is he just invited Thomas to put his hands into his wounds where he was nailed to the cross, and into his side. And I think that's very significant, that he invited Thomas to touch the very things that actually killed him, as if giving that message that, yes, I do have power over death, and so believe. So it was a very personal sort of appearance to Thomas, and to my mind, and this is something that I think would sit very well in Carmelite spirituality, that if we do believe in the resurrection, that God raised Jesus from the dead and God has power over death, it's always going to be a very personal belief, and we're going to experience that in the way Jesus comes to us and makes us know that he's our friend, he gives us the gift of peace, and he's very much with us. So I hope you can just visit that story around this Sunday. It's a great story of Jesus appearing to Thomas and the other disciples, and I do send my greetings especially to all Our Lady Mount Carmel Wentworth parishioners who might be joining this